welcome to another episode of the Black Diamond Podcast. I'm Chris, he's Jerry, and this is episode 23, the Don Mattingly / help me out. Anyone, any notable 23s?
Well, we currently have David Peterson. Pat Mahomes wore 23 while he was a Met.
The Don Mattingly, David Peterson, Pat Mahomes Sr. episode of the program. We are here today. The New York Yankees are going to the World Series. I don't have a cigar to smoke, but if I had one, I'd be smoking it. I was definitely smoking some things after they won on Saturday night. It was. I'll say this. Shout outs to the Guardians. That was. I would say that series was closer than the 5 games. Than it ending in 5 games would indicate. It definitely wasn't like it definitely didn't feel like a 5-game series. Every game was like fairly close, and like you didn't really know until the very end that you were winning it. So it wasn't like it wasn't necessarily a shellacking, but the Yankees were the better team, and they were able to outslug the Guardians, and we are back in the World Series. First time in 15 years. It feels pretty good, especially seeing like this team and this core, come up short a few times in like the Aaron Judge era. And like Giancarlo Stanton is just like an absolute monster in October, but I feel like it didn't really it didn't really get properly noticed because the Yankees were always falling short. So like he didn't get like kind of the flowers he deserved for always showing up in October. But it was great to see him show up in October when it really mattered, and help his team get to a World Series. And I'm excited to see what he does against a fairly banged up Dodgers pitching staff here coming up. What were kind of like your thoughts or your takeaways from watching that series, aside from, I don't know, like probably the sweet embrace of death?
I'm still there right now, but we should also acknowledge, and I feel like you could probably say this now with full confidence because of how everything played out. You got to see an all-time playoff game in person.
Yes, I did. I was at Game 3, the lone Yankees loss of this series, and I got to say that despite not being on the right end of it, I can confidently say that that's probably the best baseball game that I've ever been to. It had a little bit of everything. The Yankees scored first, then Guardians jump out to a 2-1 lead on a Kyle Mandazzaro home run. Then they add another run in the 6th inning to go up 3-1, and then in the 8th inning, I think it was Evan Gattis, if I'm not mistaken. Evan Gattis was pitching, and I was like,
"Oh, Hunter Gattis."
Hunter Gattis, yes.
Evan Gattis has been retired for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I was like, wait, who's Evan Gattis? That's definitely somebody. Yeah, Hunter Gattis, my mistake. So Hunter Gattis comes into the game in the 8th inning. And I remember telling my friend who I was at the game with, like, yeah, like, this is the guy we need to get to because, like, Class A is coming out after that. And he gets the first 2 batters out with ease, and I'm just like, oh, fuck. Then he walks Juan Soto on 4 pitches. And then I'm like, okay. And then then I was like, yeah, this is probably where you bring in Class A. And then, lo and behold, they bring in Class A. They play Wild Thing. They do his whole intro. And, what would happen afterwards was just nothing short of spectacular in all aspects. So then Judge hits a Judge hits a 2-run homer. It was like a piss missile that like just cleared the right field wall. Like I didn't even necessarily think it was gone like off the bat. Like it definitely had that sound to it, like that it could be. But I was like, it looks like too much of a line drive. Like I thought it was gonna hit like off the wall or bounce just in front of the wall, and it clears the wall. Yankees tie the game. I'm going absolutely nuts. And then Giancarlo comes on next, and then he hits a home run to straightaway center, and I'm going even more nuts. We're up 4-3, and I still didn't by any means feel comfortable at that point. But then in the top of the ninth, we had an extra insurance run to go up 5-3, and that's when a lot of the Cleveland fans, at least like in my section and my row, a lot of the fans started filing out at that point. Like they started leaving, and I was like, I don't know if I'd be leaving this game right now. Like it's only 2 runs. Like maybe they just felt like defeated. Like I guess they just felt defeated and just felt like, yeah, we just can't. Like I think I even heard a fan behind me say like, oh yeah, we just can't beat these guys. Like I hate to say it, but that's the truth.
I will never shame people that leave early, only in the sense of like, and I don't know how it is in the city of Cleveland in terms of mass transit and stuff like that. But if you're doing that, like, hey, I got work tomorrow, which I know they were I don't think this was a terribly late game. I think that game started in daylight, right?
Yeah, it started at 5.
Okay.
So it was still a fairly early game. Yeah, I'm not necessarily someone to shame fans for leaving early. I mean, who knows like what people have. Like people I think leave games early for like a variety of reasons,
I know that happens with the Nationals a lot when they were in the playoffs, where it's like there's the train station right by the stadium, and at a certain point it's like, yeah, we're not coming anymore. And I will say MLB playoff games have gotten shorter in the past few years, but this was back in the time where you could have like a 4.5 hour, 9-inning playoff game. And it used to be very funny to your boy when the Nationals would have these devastating playoff losses at home. And it's like, the subway's gone.
Yep.
Oh, well.
You're all sleeping outside tonight. Sucks idiots. To suck.
But yeah, I unless someone's like, oh yeah, it's over, forget it. Like then it's like, oh, you dummy. But if
yeah, no,
like,
it felt
it's 11 o'clock. I have to work tomorrow. Like I can only get on someone so much for that.
The energy in the stadium with the fans that were leaving, I can't like confirm or deny anything, but the energy very much felt like the former. It felt like they were, leaving because they felt defeated and, they wanted to beat traffic. I think there is some sort of a train that goes to Progressive Field.
I did not know that.
I rode it once. It's nothing crazy. But I did ride a train like from one of my friend's house to Progressive Field once. So I know they do have a train that like goes there. So, I don't know how much of a factor, that was, but I feel like it probably wasn't that late to the point where like, the trains were going to stop coming anytime soon.
No.
But it definitely felt like they just felt like, oh yeah, like this is over. Like, let's just get out of here. And like, yeah, it wasn't even just like our section. It felt like a lot of, it did feel like a decent amount of people started leaving at that point. And that's kind of when I started to feel like, okay, like maybe we have this game won. I don't know. But then in the bottom of the ninth, Luke Weaver gets the first 2 batters out relatively easy, much like Hunter Gaddis did in the 8th inning. He gets the first 2 batters out, and then the Guardians are down to their last strike. I forget who was batting before the big Christmas. I think it may have been it wasn't David Fry, but it might have been Kyle Mandazara. I forget who it was, but whoever was batting, he. So I was sitting in the bleachers for that game, and there's a point there's like like the way that stadium's set up, like there's a point where if the ball gets hit to like a certain part of the park, like deep left or deep left center field, because the wall's so high, like you kind of lose sight of the ball, and you kind of just have to count on like the crowd reaction to like figure out what happened. So dude hits a ball like deep left center field, and I can't see it, so I'm just like waiting for the crowd to react to like see what happened, and like there was no real crowd reaction. It seemed like everyone, like I even heard a couple of people like sighing, so that was me just so in that moment I thought, okay, like we caught it, it's over, we won. But then, like, I see Judge like fire the ball back into the back into the infield and runners on second base. I was like, all right. And then and then Johanski Noel comes up,
It was
aka
Lane
Big
Thomas
Crystal.
that hit the double.
Yes, it was Lane Thomas. Thank you. Yeah, Lane Thomas hit the double, and then Johanski Noel comes up, and I remember this guy, the same guy before who was like, oh, like I hate to say it, but we can't beat these guys. That same guy was like, so like Noel comes up and shows his stats on the scoreboard. He had like a 67 batting average in the postseason up to that point.
Good grief.
And the guy goes, oh, he's hitting 67. Like, is that good? And I think someone else said something like, oh, well, that means he's due. And like in that moment, I was like, man, we might be fucked here. Plus, well, at that point it was still Weaver, and it kind of almost felt on the other end like Weaver was like kind of due to like someone was kind of due to make Weaver look human, because like Weaver's been lights out like all postseason outside of that, but like I was like, all right, like I know this guy's like pretty fucking good, but he's not Mariano Rivera, like someone's got to be able to hit him. And then lo and behold, Johanski Noel hits a ball, and like right off the bat, I just know that it's gone. I was like, that ball's coming to me.
That ball got squared. Like just from the sound, it got squared.
Yeah, like he absolutely smoked that ball. Stadium starts going crazy, or whoever's left. I mean, it wasn't like the whole stadium emptied out. It was just like that was like a breaking point for like a handful of people. So like it was still like loud and pretty rocking at that point. But then he hits that home run, ties the game, and then we don't do anything. Then we don't do anything in our half of the 10th, and then Clay Holmes comes in, and then David Fry with the walk-off 2-run homer to end that game. And I was like, man, I can't even really be mad. But even though we lost that game, I wouldn't call it a turning point in the series, because it's like we always kind of had it. Like we were up 2-0. We won our games at home, and then we won the 2 games after that. So like it's hard to call it a turning point in the series, but I feel like it kind of prevented a turning point in this. I think what prevented a turning point in the series was, I think in that game, even though they lost, I think the Yankees figured out like, okay, we can hit Class A. We can hit anyone. And I think that, them figuring that out, like, because like, I think if the Guardians would have won the next game the next day, like we could have been in big trouble, because like that's just so much momentum shifting from like one side to the other with like the walk off, and then losing that game to tie the series up. Like it could have been a very different series. But
I do have to ask, in Game 4 when Noel connects with that ball late, did you need a new pair of pants?
That's a personal question, but yes, I did.
Fully understand it.
Yeah, especially because the camera guy thought it was gone too.
I think I've discussed this on here before, but that happened Game 5 in 2015 against the Dodgers, when Utley comes up to pinch hit in the 9th inning against Familia, and it was his first at bat. It was like his first action since all of that happened. And for a moment, I thought he had tied the game. I thought he caught it clean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this cannot happen. And it was before they changed the camera angle, and it's like, oh, Granderson's 10 feet short of the track. Okay.
Yeah.
For one moment, you're like, no, this is
Yeah,
not
and
fair
that
to me
ball.
in human life.
Yeah, and that ball sounded like it was smoke too.
Yeah.
And like it looked like it was going, before the camera guy like adjusted it, it looked like it was going like right to the same spot that that his home run the night before was hit. But then, then you see, then the camera like pans down and you see Verdugo like, standing like, at the edge of the warning track. And
Listen, Verdugo made a couple of key defensive plays in this series. He had a
yeah,
go-ahead RBI. I mean, has he earned a 6-year extension because of everything he's done to get to the Yankees in the World Series? Let's talk about it.
a 6-year extension. Well, extend Alex
I mean, he's a true
Verdugo.
Yankee now. That's you earn your pinstripes in October. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, I mean, embrace debate, I guess. I'd say let's see.
This is all I have.
Yeah. You gotta take what you can get. I would say let's see what he does in the World Series. But I think if anything, I don't know if he's earned a extension necessarily, but I think if anything, he's probably earned the right for like Yankee fans to like shut the fuck up about him for, maybe another 48 hours or maybe less than 48 hours. We'll go with like 45 hours. That's when
we're about wake up tomorrow and it's like,
about 45 hours away from first pitch as we speak right now. And
we're gonna wake up tomorrow and we're gonna be like, damn, Kev jumped to both of us. How'd he do it?
yeah, like, oh shit, we're both dead. Huh? Like we wake up like, in a hospital room. Like, how in the hell?
But on a serious note, I do think this series might actually be a serious turning point for baseball if they critically think about this series, because it's happened in other playoff series this year too. But I think especially in this series where you had Clase being, I mean, there were people legitimately giving him a Cy Young case, which, like, whether you think a reliever should win it or not, that's another discussion. But like Skubal, I think, was legitimately that deal this year.
Yeah.
But he's the most dominant closer in the game this year, and he really has been since COVID. And he looked very human. Luke Weaver had been on a run since he was installed as the closer, and all of a sudden he looked human. The Guardians bullpen is the reason that they had the year that they did. This is what they do. Their fortunes are determined by their bullpen. And we've said it on here in the past few weeks. The postseason has become a bullpen game. Well, we've seen, this is supposed to be the super bullpen of the Guardians, and closers everywhere. I mean, because it happened to Diaz in the Philly series, and it's happened to other guys. There's this notion that when you get in the playoffs, it's, oh, well, the starter can't see the third time through the order. He'll be tired. They'll know his stuff. And yet, the Guardians were going to keep running out the same guys every single day, not just this series, but the Detroit series as well.
Yeah, and they would have kept doing it if they went further.
And especially in a 7-game series, like, you don't assume a sweep or a 5-game series. Like, you assume you're probably going 6 or 7.
Yeah, you would think
you have
so.
to keep doing that every single game. You don't think your bullpen guys are going to get tired because they're throwing max effort, max velocity, because every bullpen has these guys now that they strictly live at 99, 100. And if they're being brought in to face the same parts of the lineup, you don't think those guys are going to figure it out? Those are some smart hitters. I don't care what team you're playing.
Yeah.
They're going to get a book on them too. I'd rather go with the guys that, like, all right, well, my starters have gotten me to here. Okay, yeah, they're seeing them third time through the order. I would rather live with the guys that have gotten us here than wear out my bullpen arms going out there day after day after day. And I think it caught up to the Guardians. Fortunately for the Yankees, it only caught up to them once, but I think everyone in Yankee land is sufficiently spooked after Game 3. And we saw it happen elsewhere around Major League Baseball in this postseason. It's like, yeah, it sounds nice. And if you've got a guy who can withstand the workload, like, I mean, and I think of Andrew Miller is probably the best case of that, but even he, by the end in 2016, even the Cubs kind of knew what to look for, and they got him in Game 7, the one that ultimately mattered the most.
Yeah.
And I don't want I have to think other teams are going to look at this and go, yeah, maybe we are running our bullpen guys too much. Maybe
Yeah.
we
And
do have to kind of pick our
yeah, and
levers.
it happens to my bad. And it happened to, going back further, or well, same game, but it happened to Chapman in that game too,
Yeah.
when Rajay Davis hit a home run off of him. And he had been pretty lights out before that. And then Chapman, obviously he had his bad moments in postseason games with the Yankees, against
What gets forgotten about in 2016 was they had used him in Game 6, and they were up
yeah,
like
they
5
used him the day
runs at the
before.
time.
After it was all said and done, I think he even was like, they won the World Series, and he was like, I think he was still even like being critical of the manager at the time, who I
I
can't
think he's
remember who it
right.
is for the life of me right now. But yeah, I think I remember
Joe
him
Madden.
being. Yeah, it was Joe Madden. I think I remember him. Yeah, and then David Ross took over after because he like retired. But yeah, I think I remember him being like critical of him, like even after they won the World Series, being like, "Oh yeah, like my arm's like shot, like
Well,
it
and
shouldn't have been out there."
I kind of remember vividly because when they brought him into Game 6, he had to go cover first on a play, and he hit the base wrong and like kind of was limping after that, and you could tell he was favoring his ankle. And immediately everyone
That
was like,
fucks with that fucks with your pitching motion, your windup.
why are you bringing him out when you have Game 7 probably like you're probably safe. You're up 5 or 6 runs here. Like
Yeah,
you got this guy specifically to close Game 7 of the World Series. Why are you wasting bullets for a game that you're probably going to win anyway? And it
yeah,
very nearly killed them.
right.
They were luckily it didn't, but it very nearly did.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think as far as that goes, um, there's multiple ways to bake a cake. Like, I know that baseball is such a data and analytics driven game, especially these days. So I definitely get like, the whole notion of, I definitely understand the whole notion of, not wanting to see not wanting to let your pitcher see the lineup a third time. But I think, like you have to have feel for the game too. And you have to kind of pick your battles as far as you have to pick your battles as far as like when you're going to deploy your bullpen and when you're going to pull the plug early and when you're going to try and save it for like save your bullets for a higher leverage situation. Like I think a good example of that was actually like the Mets game in Game 5. Like they brought in Edwin Diaz in the 8th inning, and a friend of mine asked me, he's like, "Oh, why are they bringing Diaz in here? They're up by like 5 runs." I was like, "You know what? Like it's an elimination game. They're facing the heart of the lineup, and they got tomorrow off. You just want to lock this game down." So like,
Same thing in Game 6,
yeah.
where it
So
was
like
like even at the time
this actually,
I was like, yeah, you got to make sure this game's still winnable while you're facing elimination. But on the other hand, like, what if you do pull it off? Who's closing this? Because then they went to Stanek right after that, and it's like, I get it, you got to stay alive, but what if we do? What if we make it back?
yeah,
Who's finishing this?
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
we never
definitely
got there, but it's a valid question.
yeah, yeah. It would have been a nice, it would have been a nice problem to have, but it is a valid question nonetheless. Like you got to have someone that is available. You can't just
But this is
and I
what
think,
postseason baseball is. It's like I got to handle right now, and you're in a
which is
spot where it's like,
understandable. You got to win. You got to win the game that's in front of you.
yeah,
Like and I can understand that from like both perspectives. Whether you're the team that's up, up in the series, or you're the team that's down. If you're the team that's down, it's like, all right, yeah, we need this so we can like so we can live to see another day. And if you're the team that's off, it's like, yeah, we don't want to let you guys back in. Like we just want to lock this down now. So there's a lot of there's a lot that goes into it.
now in fairness for that Game 5, someone should have told Carlos Mendoza that according to some bow tie wearing guy on Fox, the Dodgers had already conceded the game, apparently, because, Dave Roberts, super genius.
Oh, is that what happened?
There was a whole spiel during Game 6. Well, actually, the Dodgers conceded games 2 and 5 because Dave Roberts is so smart. He knew they already lost, so he didn't try.
Please.
No, Game 2 actually wasn't over until the last out. So no. And Game 5, we just jumped your starter right away, is what happened, and we put 12 runs on
When they needed to.
So no, you didn't quit.
Yeah, and then in game 4, I remember feeling like we gotta because it was Gavin Williams pitched for the Guardians that night, and it was Gavin Williams versus was it I think it was Rodon that night. No, wait, it wasn't Rodon.
Hang on, I can pull that for you.
Or no, it was Luis Heel. Luis Heel pitched game 4. And I remember being like, we gotta jump on this guy early because honestly, like the Guardians are probably gonna get to Heel at one point or another. Like as good as he's been this year, and he very well might win Rookie of the Year for the AL. There's like a pretty solid chance that he does, but I kind of just knew like that. It was hard to trust him in that spot. So I was like, we got to jump on this guy early. And like, luckily we did, but it was still, it was still a stressful game, still a stressful game down to the very end in that game. And then, and then Game 5, Guardians go up 2 runs early. Giancarlo Stanton hits a game tying home run. And then they were pretty much deadlocked until, they were pretty much deadlocked until the 10th inning, and then like I think Clase I think actually got through that game unscathed, that last game, but I think at that point, like I think that the trust that they had, not permanently, but I think in that moment, the trust that they had for Clase had kind of withered away, and his arm was probably shot too.
What's the invincibility thing too?
Yeah, so he only pitched 1 inning, and then I saw said Hunter Gaddis warming up in the bullpen, and I was like, please bring this guy in, I would love that. And then they do, and Kyle Manzaro botched a double play on a Alex Verdugo ground ball, and then Juan fucking Soto just if you want to talk about who really has earned a maybe 16-year extension, fuck it, Juan Soto just, and like it looked like so I was watching that game at a bar, so the sound wasn't really on, so I couldn't really hear it, but I kind of could tell by Soto's body language. I could kind of tell that he knew that he had it, but I still didn't really believe it until I saw the ball go over the fence.
I mean, there's not much else to say. Like that's why you got him.
Yeah, that's why we got him, and that's why in my opinion, you pay that man whatever he wants. You cannot, like, especially after that moment, like, listen, all due respect, Juan Soto is a New York Yankee. Like, that was like, and that moment to me, like, proved it. Like you can't just like go to the Mets because they offer you more money after that. I mean, you can, but that just wouldn't be right.
Try me.
I will.
I'll call him pussy. He won't. He won't do it.
He won't do it, and he would be wise not to. But we can fight over Juan Soto. We can fight over Juan Soto after this World Series is over. So even though the World Series hasn't started yet, one man is already a World Series champion, and that would be Taylor Trammell. He played for both the Yankees and the Dodgers this year, and
that is news to me.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen you haven't seen anything about that?
Now,
So
I have heard of him because he was a pretty well known prospect at one point, but I did not know that he had played for both the Yankees and Dodgers this year. No, I did not.
yeah, so he yeah, so he was on the Yankees. So he was. I think he started the season. He might have started the season with the Dodgers, and then he got waived.
Let me
I
see.
saw it was a thing on Instagram about it, but I saw he started the season with the Dodgers for like the first like 2 weeks of the season. He played like 5 games there. Then he got waived by LA, and then the Yankees picked him up, and he played another 5 games for the Yankees, and then he got sent down. He is
Did not
still
know that.
in. Yeah, he's still in the Yankees organization. But yeah, he is guaranteed a World Series ring no matter what happens. Congratulations, Taylor Trammell. You are a World Series champion, and you don't even have to do anything more. You are getting a ring.
And you get to do the champagne celebration in your own house. Pretty sick.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I imagine like he's just like sitting there with like a sign, like it says like I just hope both teams have fun, and
Go me.
he's like I hope both teams have fun, and like anytime like anyone hits a home run, he's just gonna be like it must be nice to be him because it's gonna be it must be nice to be him because I'm sure it's gonna be a stressful time for a lot of fans. So he'll probably just be like cheering every time someone hits a home run, and every game, every time a game ends, it's like I'm one game closer, baby. Like no matter what happens.
I've never related to a person less.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, but yeah, congratulations to Taylor Trammell. But in all seriousness, Yankees Dodgers. So previewing this World Series. I think this is this was the I don't think the as much as New Yorkers may or may not have wanted a Subway Series, I think that the I think that this was the World Series that like the networks wanted, and I'm pretty sure it was pretty apparent with the Fox broadcasts because like that Joe Davis is like the Dodgers actual announcer, and I'll be honest, I didn't watch as much of the NLCS as I probably should have, but all I heard was that they were just like filleting the Dodgers like the whole time.
This is why I have headphones on during games.
Yeah. Do you put on like the radio broadcast and listen to Howie, or you just like
Oh
listen
no,
to
I just
music?
I just put music on.
There you go.
It's much more.
Do you have like a specific playlist or a
Nah,
specific type
I
of
just throw
music
on
you like to
shuffle.
listen to during games?
Nah, just shuffle.
Just whatever comes up. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, I respect that.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because
and I have nothing against Joe Davis, by the way, because I actually think he does a good job. But it's
he
also like,
does.
yeah, I know who you work for. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
not
And
accusing him of
Fox.
anything. Like, I don't want to put it like that, but it's like it's
Well,
only
was it?
natural.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it him who made that comment, being like, "Oh yeah, Dave Roberts so smart, he basically punted
Well,
that
no,
game."
that was Rosenthal.
Oh, Ken Rosenthal said
That's why I
that.
made the
Okay.
bow tie reference.
Oh yeah, that's what I was. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense now. Oh yeah, this guy's a genius, just punting games in the playoffs. Real fucking smart.
Yeah, known playoff winner, Dave Roberts. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely known for that. Hopefully, at least he can't. At least he can't pinch run in this series and steal a base off the best closer of all time and spark a comeback from down 3-0.
Hopefully, he doesn't intentionally walk Soto to face Judge with the bases loaded because that happened last round.
Yeah, That would be pretty stupid.
It was the one thing and Chris can vouch for this because I said it right after the Grand Slam. It was the one thing I did forget to bring up in the preview show for the NLCS, and I stand by this. Was Dave Roberts was going to do something catastrophically stupid at some point. It didn't kill them, but it was. And it's very much in play in the World Series too, because if you look back at, Sands 2020, there is something he does every World Series. He
Every
clearly
playoff
comes from the
series.
Tony La Russa school of over managing and making moves just to make them.
Yeah.
Every year that the Dodgers go out, he has a hand in it. So
Yeah.
I know Yankee fans aren't wild about Aaron Boone, but look at the guy in the other dugout.
Yeah. I think as far as from a managerial standpoint, I feel like it'll come down to who can stay out of the way more.
Yeah.
I think like that'll be key is like who could stay out of the way more and like who can, stay out of the way and who can manage their bullpen better. Because, I'm sure that the Dodgers are going to have a bullpen game. And I think this is kind of an advantage that the Yankees have is that, the Dodgers are definitely going to have a bullpen game at some point. We have a 4-man rotation, so we really shouldn't have to have a bullpen game at any point.
No.
Like we should be able to go, Cole, Rodon, I guess Clark Schmidt, and then Luis Heel, and then I think Nestor Cortez is going to be on the I think Nestor Cortez is going to be on the World Series roster. He basically said like. He basically said he talked to his doctors and they weighed out the risks and the rewards. And basically he came to the conclusion, like, if he has to take a year off from baseball, but he gets a World Series ring, then so be it is basically, it's basically what he said. So
I'd like to do that.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah. Shit. I wouldn't mind a year off from work after, achieving like the great, the highest accomplishment possible. So, I hope it works out for him. Obviously, I hope he doesn't get hurt. I hope he makes it through. Honestly, I hope we don't have to see Nestor Cortez unless it's like a mop up in like a game that we're up like 10-0. But like he hasn't pitched in so long at this point. It's like, and then like for his first live action to be against the Dodgers, especially if it's a game where like a starter gets yanked early because like they don't have it or or an injury or something like that I might need multiple new pairs of pants. So I'm hoping we don't really have to see them.
I just want to put this out there now because I know like plenty of Met fans are getting dumped on for this.
Yeah.
I could just not like the World Series matchup because I'm not in it. Like that. I don't care if there's not an underdog in it. I don't care what the team's payrolls are. I'm certainly not going to point the finger about that because my team throws around money, and boy, am I glad they do. And I hope they do this offseason, which is another show for another time. But
yeah,
people being like, oh, why people don't want Tigers Brewers in the World Series every year? It's like, no, I want my team in it, and I'm sad that they're not, so I don't care.
Yeah, and I think
it's a perfectly valid reason.
Yeah, and I think that I think a lot of the fans of smaller market teams that that don't like the bigger market teams, I think it's you're not mad at the Yankees or the Dodgers. You're mad at your owner who doesn't spend money because all these owners are billionaires. So they all have the money to put out a competitive product. I'm not saying every team needs to spend.
I believe the Dolan that owns the Indians actually has a higher net worth than Hal Steinbrenner. I thought I saw that.
Really?
Or if he doesn't, it's really close. Like there was a side-by-side and I'm like, oh. Like I know he's a Dolan family member, so I know they've got it like that. I didn't know it was that close.
Yeah, no,
you trade Francisco Lindor, so Andres Gimenez can now have a career 493 OPS in the postseason with 2 RBI. They still won the trade, right?
Yeah, congratulations. Well, according to some Mets fans, the Guardians won that trade in April of 2021.
Yeah.
So,
with hammers, it's those people is what I say, with hammers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them must have gotten hammered because I'm not really hearing anything from them. But yeah, no, another thing I want to put out, yeah. So like, I think that because like people will be like, oh yes, baseball needs a salary cap, like fuck the Yankees and Dodgers and Mets and all these teams that spend big. It's like, listen, maybe this is probably directed more Pirates fans than anyone, but you're not mad at us. You're mad at Bob Nutting because he doesn't spend money, and uh and you're projecting that against teams that do spend money. I'm not saying that every team needs to spend like over $300 million, but there are plenty of ways to bake a cake.
You
As
can
far as
try.
fielding,
You can
as
attempt to bake a cake.
you could buy the batter and
Yeah.
the ingredients. You could get the better eggs instead of looking for eggs that costed like $1.99 or whatever eggs used to cost
That are past their
before.
expiration date.
Yeah, yeah, you can get eggs that are not expired. uh like there are ways to try to bake a cake and put out a competitive product where you don't necessarily have to spend 200 or $300 million, but like no reason why they can't spend like 175 or
Look what
150.
Kansas City did.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kansas City like didn't go. I mean, they went crazy for them, but they spent like they went and got Seth Lugo. They added a couple other guys. They're like, oh, we have a MVP caliber shortstop. All right, cool. We're keeping him here.
yeah, we're gonna
They
keep
spent to
them.
do it.
We're
They
gonna
tried a modicum. Look what it got him.
Yeah, I feel like I bet a lot of that. I bet a lot of that comes from like Patrick Mahomes having stake in the team. They got that Mahomes money. So
Probably doesn't hurt.
yeah, I'm sure it doesn't hurt. Another thing I want to put out there is I saw a lot of talk from fans of other teams in the baseball community that were trying to say that the Yankees had an easy path to the World Series this year because because maybe they didn't have to, because maybe they didn't run into a certain team that had been a thorn in their side in years past, or maybe they didn't run into a certain team in their division that kind of had their number in the regular season. And to that, I say hammers to you too, because that's just an outlandish statement. I think that if anything, if I'm a Guardians fan and I'm hearing people say that, I'd say that's pretty disrespectful. It's pretty disrespectful to the Guardians.
Yeah.
They're no slouches. It's kind of disrespectful to the Royals too. I mean, I say we had an easier time with the Royals than Cleveland, but neither of those teams were slouches. And to that, like if you're whether I feel like most people saying this are probably Orioles and Astros fans, if we're being real. Or like those are the teams that people are talking about, like, oh, the Yankees are only in the World Series because they avoided those teams. But it's like, all right, if the Orioles would have been able to, manufacture more than one run against said Royals, then
Yeah.
maybe you would have had your chance. If the Astros could have beaten the Tariq Skubal and Vibes and Friendship Tigers,
They
maybe.
got bullpenned out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they got bullpenned out of the playoffs. Exactly. So that's a bunch of nonsense, and I won't stand for that. And now they play the best. They play the best of the best in the Dodgers. You got there's probably me and a friend of mine were talking about this the other night, but in total, there's probably like 6 or 7 like surefire future Hall of Famers in this World Series, and then there might be like a couple other fringe guys as well.
Yeah,
Like,
I think there's guys that could improve their case with, you have a monster series like this. This is how you get to that level is by showing up and making a name for yourself. Like
yeah, like
Corey Seager, I think has had a pretty good career, but he had 2 monster World Series, and now I think rightfully, I think he's still got work to do, but he has a Hall of Fame case now because He's got 2 World Series MVPs. There's only like 3 other guys that did that. So if someone wanted to say Corey Seager deserves to be in, off the strength of that, I think he's got a real case. Like that's how you make that happen. People, I mean, baseball fans knew about Juan Soto before 2019. I think casuals at large figured out who Juan Soto was during the 2019 World Series. That's how you make that happen. Ben Zobrist made a name for himself back-to-back years in the World Series. That's what happens.
Yeah, like I think if you're like if you're like, you know, a surefire, like definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame, like you're Shohei Ohtani or you're Aaron Judge, you know,
Mookie Betts.
yeah, Mookie Betts, like, you know, this World Series, you know, it probably doesn't affect your case one way or the other too much. But I think if you are a fringe guy, I think that what you do in a World Series can go a long way at the end of the day. Like someone like Will Smith, like it's early for him, but like
Yeah,
he's a guy who like I consider kind of a fringe guy, like Hall of, like right now I think he's like a Hall of pretty good, not quite Hall of Fame, although the Baseball Hall of Fame kind of has become the Hall of pretty good. Um, so you know he could get in either way, but like this is like you know, for a guy like him, this is kind of like that type of opportunity. I would even say like Giancarlo Stanton, you know, if he gets to
yeah.
500 home runs, he probably gets in. But you know what else would help?
I think if he were to just have like an all-time series right now, I think that would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, FanDuel has this prop. It's like for anyone, any player to hit 6 home runs in the World Series and like break the World Series record for like most home runs in a World Series. And I'm thinking about putting a little sprinkle on it because if there was ever a World Series for that to happen, I feel like this one would be it. There's a lot of candidates.
Yeah,
I mean, if you know, my one hope is that, you know, obviously I'm glad that the Yankees closed the series out when they did. You know, they saved Cole's arm for game 1. But I guess my hopes going into the series are, you know, I guess you have like a 6-day layoff. So my hope is that, and then it's an even longer layoff for Cole because he hasn't pitched since game 1 of the ALCS. So it's like almost 2 weeks, like over a week and a half for him. So I guess my biggest hope is that, number one, I hope that Cole looks sharp in game 1 of the World Series, that he doesn't come out like rusty. Because like that was apparent in like game 1 of the ALDS. Like he hadn't pitched in a while, and it looked pretty clear like that it looked clear like, oh, like he didn't have it that night. Luckily, we still won that game, but he was getting hit hard like from the get go, and you know you could get away with that against a team like the Royals, but the Dodgers are a
counterpoint
whole different animal.
counterpoint being that the Dodgers bats were about as hot as they could be, and they've got a 5-day layoff. So
Yeah,
maybe maybe that works
yeah.
to your advantage
So
too.
maybe it evens out. My next, the next point I was going to make was going to be about the Yankees bats and hoping that they stay hot with this layoff. You know, it's like you got to Class A, and you got to feel like after that, you got to feel like you can hit anyone. So, you know, I just hope that they're able to keep that same momentum and, you know, keep that same energy going into the World Series. But, you know,
In
a
all
lot of
honesty,
people,
I think you just have to beat Yamamoto once, because I don't
yeah,
think I don't think Jack Flaherty is going to make you guys look the way he made us look in game 1. And I assume this series at least goes 6, in which case you're going to see 2 bullpen games from LA at that point.
yeah.
So,
And neither of
and I
them
also
went
don't
well
think
for them
Walker
against the
Bueller is going
Mets.
to look as I don't think Walker Bueller is going to look as good against you guys as he did against us. So, if you can beat Yamamoto, all of the other games are winnable. I don't think there's I don't know. I think Yamamoto's slated for game 2 and they have you guys listed as undecided. That might be the only game they have a pitching advantage in. Every other one,
Yeah,
you guys, it's either you have the advantage or it's close to even.
yeah, yeah.
So you win the Yamamoto game, the Dodgers are in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would imagine it would probably be Rodon game 2.
Yeah, because that'll be
Um,
just about a week for him.
yeah, yeah, because I think Rodon pitched game 5, and then Cole was gonna pitch. Cole was gonna pitch game 6 if there was one. So yeah, it'll be Cole, Rodon. Then I'm not sure if they would do Clark Schmidt game 3 again, or if they would, or what their plans would be for after that. But I think like you're pretty solidified with like Cole and Rodon as the 1-2 punch. So if you could take one or both of those games in LA, especially if it is that Yamamoto game, then yeah, I would say that you're in pretty good shape at that point. Like going back home to potentially win the series. But I'm expecting this. If I just take a step back and take my fandom out of it and think about it globally, I'm expecting this to be like one of the World Series of all time, or at least of recent memory. I mean, you got Judge versus Otani, or as my friend likes to call it, Godzilla versus King Kong. You got, so you got Judge versus Otani. I'm sure everyone's going to be sick of like the whole East Coast, West Coast like narrative that's going to be behind it. Mookie Betts, fucking Juan Soto. So there's no shortage of star power, and two teams I would say that are pretty evenly matched. Like I would say, the Dodgers probably have a little more firepower in their lineup than we do, but we definitely, I think, have the starting pitching advantage, and both of our bullpens are really good. But I think I would give the Yankees the slight advantage as far as the bullpen goes, because like we're probably not going to be, hopefully I don't end up eating crow on this, but we're probably not going to be relying on our bullpen as heavily as they are, because like you said, they're probably going to have at least 2 bullpen games.
And you
Uh,
would think if those games are close, that they probably have to use their A guys, like that being Phillips, Kopech. Banda's their only lefty, so they're going to have to use him pretty regularly.
yeah, they're definitely going to have to use him for
And that's just
for the
counting the 2
Soto
bullpen
matchups.
games. Yeah, that's just for the 2 bullpen games, to say nothing of whatever else may happen in the series. So you might be looking at a case where, their main guys are all throwing 4 or 5 games, and however many pitches that takes, on top of all the work they've already had to do to get to this point. And I just wonder how much they've had. I mean, I know the Yankees have used their bullpen in the playoffs, but I don't think they've had to put nearly the workload on them. I don't think Weaver's been used nearly as much. I don't think Mark Leiter's been used as much.
Yeah, not
I know you
quite.
probably want to stay away from Clay Holmes at this point, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Is the guys you need probably are good to go.
Yeah. So my thing with Clay Holmes is I'm cool with Clay Holmes pitching as long as it's not in a spot where the game can either be like won or lost. So like he has to come in before the 9th inning. He can't come in the 9th or in extras. That's when you get in trouble with Clay Holmes. But lately, ever since like he switched out of the closer role, which he did, pretty gracefully. No one likes to like have their like, get demoted or whatever. But I think he handled it pretty gracefully, and he's pitched really well. Like when they were bringing him out in like the 7th or 8th inning in a lot of those games, he was pretty locked down. Weaver, it's interesting. Like it feels like they've used Weaver basically every game, but it also doesn't feel like he's been like overused,
No,
if that makes sense.
no,
'Cause
they've managed him correctly.
yeah, they've managed him. Yeah, they've managed Weaver about as well as you could. So, definitely Aaron Boone definitely deserves credit for that, for how he's managed the bullpen throughout these playoffs. And I think for the most part, his lineups have been pretty good. My one thing would be do not split up Soto, Judge, and Stanton.
No.
like fuck the lefty righty thing. If anything, you go Judge Soto then Stanton if you even want to mess with that. But I would just keep it Soto, Judge, Stanton. You don't split that
these are
up
my
under
three
any
best guys.
circumstances, especially for Jazz Chisholm, because like he's not really hitting.
No,
But if Jazz could wake up and start getting on base this World Series, I think that would make a big difference because you get him on the bases and you get some speed on the base pass. Because obviously Dodgers have their weapons who can do damage on the base pass. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani had 50 steals this year. He can also hit a home run 50 times. Mookie Betts can definitely steal bases. Like
nobody told me.
you didn't hear about that?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's not like it was it's not like they were very heavily promoting it or shoving it down anyone's throat. You learn something new every day. Shohei Ohtani 50-50.
But yeah, I think the pitching advantage leans to you, and I agree with the idea of you've just got to keep Soto, Judge, and Stanton together. It's the World Series. You fight strength with strength and go, these are my three best guys. You figure how to get them out.
Yeah. Glaber
overthinking it is where you get in trouble.
Yeah. Glaber in the leadoff spot. I think he's probably the best option as far as a leadoff hitter goes right now. I would leave Volpe, kind of where he is in the 6 hole. I think he's doing like fairly well in that role. Obviously, like you're not going to count on him for like power or anything like that. But he's been hitting the ball and getting on base in the ALCS. I wouldn't like start messing around and like try and bat him lead off. Like we saw how that went in the regular season. Like Volpe like started the season on fire, and then they were like, oh, we should bat you lead off, and then like it like fucked. It just like fucked with his confidence and fucked with everything. And he, for a while, couldn't hit. So, yeah, I would probably leave that alone. But yeah, if you keep Stanton cleanup, Judge 3 and Soto 2nd, then that kind of fixes your problem of like not having a cleanup hitter that you had when you were batting Stanton 5th. And then, you can kind of plug and play the rest of the lineup the rest of the way. Like,
yeah.
However you see fit, depending who, depending who's on the mound for the Dodgers that day. So, yeah, I'm expecting it to be a very good, very exciting World Series. I think you'll have I think there'll probably be at least one game in this World Series that like all baseball fans will kind of like unanimously agree and kind of unanimously look back on and be like, yeah, that was like a classic game. I'm hoping that doesn't end up being a game 7 just because like, I don't know if I would survive it, but I think we are going to get that type of game this World Series at some point.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah.
I won't be there. Y'all be safe though.
I'll try, man. I'll try. You be safe doing whatever you're doing.
It's about time I caught up on a good book.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it is book season for some of us out there, so I'm sure you could find
I'm basketball season. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's books and basketball. It's the bees.
It ain't football season for me anymore.
Yeah, so before we I give you the floor to kind of eulogize the Mets, shall we make some World Series predictions?
I've got you guys in 6. I mean, I think like I said, I think the starting pitching and the fact that you have a structure and you have a bullpen that has done a job but hasn't been overused, and you've got depth in there. Like you've got multiple lefties. Like you said, Holmes is good when the game's not on the line. I think Mark Leiter's been mostly fine. I think if Anthony Rizzo just makes the simple play, I mean, not the easiest play in the world, but a catchable ball, then Leiter's out of that jam the other night, and we're not looking at it like, oh, he blew the lead. because it wasn't
Yeah.
totally him. But I think you're well positioned there in your bullpen. I think your starting pitching's done the job it's needed. I wouldn't say that they've been shut down,
Yeah,
but
they haven't been
on
lights
Cole,
out or like
they've done enough, and that's all you ask for.
100%,
I
100%
think the Dodgers have had to really tax their pitching to get to where they've needed
to
to
where they
be.
are now.
I think their offense has enough high-end talent that it could probably win them a game. I think their pitching might get them one. Their offense gets them one as well, but I don't think they can do it 4 times.
Yeah. So I'm going to also agree that I mean, how could I not pick the Yankees? Like, come on. But I think it's going to go 7. I think I pretty much agree with everything you said, but I just, with that the top of that lineup, especially in Yankee Stadium, and also, I mean, Dodger Stadium. Dodger Stadium is not exactly like, I feel like Dodger Stadium is pretty neutral as far as whether it's like a hitter friendly or pitcher friendly park. Like, it's probably a little more hitter friendly than pitcher friendly, but
not outrageous.
Yeah, not outrageous in either direction. But I think that, just having like that kind of four-headed monster at the top of the lineup. I think it's going to take, I think it's going to take everything. I do see the series going the distance, but in the end, I think the Yankees get it done. I think, if there is a game 7, you're probably seeing Cole on either short or normal rest. Well, probably short rest at that point. And I think you see Cole on short rest, and it's all hands on deck, and I think we find a way to get it done.
And I do think I know technically the Dodgers have home field advantage, but if you get the split in LA and you're going home for 3, and I know ticket prices are what they are, and it'll never be the same in that respect. And that's not a shot at the Yankees. That's everybody is. There's only
tickets
so
ain't
much
cheap.
of a home field advantage you can have now anywhere because of people being priced out.
Yeah,
but
tickets ain't cheap in LA either.
Right. Well, but I don't think Dodger Stadium's ever had the idea of being intimidating. I think if New Yankee Stadium was ever going to summon up any of the magic of the old place, not being in the World Series for 15 years and some of the losses you guys have endured in that time, to get back to here and knowing that it might be your one shot with Soto. I don't know, but I think there's enough stakes hanging over this fan base that whoever is in those buildings for 3 through 5, if it's ever going to approach what the old place was, it's going to be these 3 games. And if you can get one in LA, you might finish it there. I think off the strength of the potential bullpen game, you'd have the pitching matchups to your advantage. And, whether it's the true fans or not, I think that place is going to be nuts for finally having World Series games in Yankee Stadium since 2009.
Oh, it'll be rocking, and I think that I think that I think you'll have a good mix of true fans and corporate overlords. But I think that regardless, that even the corporate overlords, I think they're gonna know, like, we got to bring the noise right now. This is like the type of shit like that we live for. So I expect it to be a raucous environment, regardless of how expensive tickets are. I am, probably, I'm probably looking at doing what I can to try and be at at a World Series game. Probably a home game at Yankee Stadium. The main kicker for me is because, like, ticket prices, whether it's LA or New York, like looking at the games, like on StubHub or whatever, the prices for the games are fairly similar. The real kicker is the flights. It's a lot cheaper for me to fly to New York than LA right now. So, like, if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna do everything in my power to try and get to a World Series game at Yankee Stadium. I won't care about that money when I'm dead. So that's
kind of how I live.
yeah.
Like you can always make the money back. You don't get a chance to
Yeah.
do the stuff that you really want in life. So
Yeah. Like this doesn't exactly happen every day. I mean, like 15 years isn't a long time, it's it's a lot of people, for a lot of people 30 years or 100 years is kind of like the same thing. So like 15 years isn't exactly a long time, but it's not exactly yesterday either. So I'm gonna do what I can to try and take advantage of this opportunity. But I guess moving on to a more somber note. I'm sorry, Jerry, but it's an ode, a eulogy for the 2024 Grimace Mets. We hardly knew he, but it was a valiant run by the Mets. I think they really, I think in the end of the day, I think they gave it everything they had, and unfortunately, the Dodgers were the better team. But I think there's no real. I don't think Mets fans really have anything to like be ashamed of or like hang their hat on. Maybe there are certain decisions or certain turning points in the series that you could look back on where you feel like where you feel like it was right there. But yeah, overall, I think they just had a little more. They just had a little more firepower in the end.
so I'll start first off by saying I honestly it's the only feelings of disappointment is as Game 6 started to unfold.
Yeah.
There's that ping in your stomach that as it's happening. Oh, this is it. And
Yeah.
deep down, like there's no coming
Yeah,
back.
like there's not another like magic, like this is gonna be the one they don't get up from.
Yeah.
By the way, nobody sent us any insults, so we're not gonna be insulting you on the podcast.
There'll be other days.
My only insult to you is that I tried to tell you how much Todd Bowles sucked as a head coach, and at first you kind of defended him, but you've seen the light.
And not only did I see the light, it was actually a train that hit me right on at 500 miles an hour.
Yeah, that was the back to back trains that were run on you.
Yeah, like Sunday night 11 p.m. to Monday night 11 p.m. Not a fun time for your boy.
Yeah, 24
also,
hours of hell.
It also does suck in like the hours after an elimination where everyone's getting the jokes off and like ESPN putting out the graphic with the Dodgers holding a sign that says World Series that looks like the OMG sign, or the Fox Sports putting out the Family Guy thing, smashing a record that says OMG. It's like, so where was this for Baltimore? Where was this for the Astros? Where was this for the Phil? Oh, it's just us you dump on.
Yeah.
People think we're crazy that the national media wants us to lose.
Yeah. Or
Where
that,
would we ever
LOL
get
Mets
that
is
idea?
yeah, like they'll say LOL Mets is in your head. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there was
God
anything.
forbid we get to be happy for 3 months.
Yeah, I don't think there was really anything LOL about these Mets. Aside from, I mean, maybe when Jorge Lopez threw the glove into the stands and had that like post game meltdown, that was LOL Mets. But from that, pretty much after that, Grimace came and saved the day. And,
but I will give my general thought on this series is this is let me take you into the time capsule and explain, and it'll sum up how I'm feeling about the series as a whole. So the Mets have been eliminated from the playoffs 6 times in my conscious life. When they lost to the Braves in 99, it was because their bullpen couldn't hold a lead in the 10th inning of game 6. And then it went to the 11th and they lost there. Because I'll always believe if they win game 6, they absolutely win game 7. Because it's what the Red Sox ultimately did. Like once you get it to 7 and it's in someone's park, like that place would have just been overwhelmed. But
yeah.
Benitez and Franco combined couldn't hold the lead, and that was that. The next year in the Subway Series, game 1, Todd Zeal's home run doesn't get called a home run. Timo Perez gets thrown out at the plate. We have the lead in the 10th inning. Armando Benitez doesn't hold it. Game 2, Roger Clemens doesn't get ejected for attempted murder in the 2nd inning, and he ends up throwing a gem. That was basically the series. In 2006, everyone always points to the Beltran moment, but really there's 2 things that real Mets fans know cost them the series.
Yeah. And that was such a good pitch. Like, it's hard to even be mad at Beltran.
And there were people that are like, man, I can't believe he didn't swing the bat. So he's completely out in front on the curveball, and he looks like a jackass. Like, that would have looked better.
Yeah. Then he's swinging out of his shoes, and
and it looks worse.
Then
but earlier in Game 7, the half inning after Endy Chavez makes maybe the greatest catch in the history of baseball, they had the bases loaded. This, like, we've seen this in so many playoff games. Like, it's over right there. Jose Valentin strikes out. In Game 2, they were leading the series 1-0. They were up 3 in the 7th inning of Game 2. They had knocked Chris Carpenter out. He's the reigning Cy Young winner. They had beat him up. Guillermo Mota shakes off Paul LaDuca and gives up a game-tying triple to Scott Spezio. We end up losing that game in extras. If it's 2-0 going to St. Louis, that series is done. And then in Game 3, Steve Traxel gets taken deep by a pitcher.
Yeah.
In 2007, the starting pitching just completely fell apart down the stretch, and they mentally folded. In 2008, the bullpen stunk because I think Billy Wagner might have been hurt. No, he was. Yeah, he missed the last month, and nobody in that bullpen had any sort of mental fortitude to step up and do the job, and that's why they were out that year. 2015, we've talked about it. In 3 of their 4 losses, they led in the 8th inning or later. And if Jerry's Familia doesn't quick pitch Alex Gordon, if Murphy doesn't boot the double play ball in Game 4, if Lucas Duda makes a good throw, to say nothing of the Harvey decision, that series goes differently. 2016 doesn't matter because that game could have gone 30 innings. They would have never scored off Bumgarner.
Yeah. They never would have taken him out.
Yeah. 2022, that team mentally folded in the Atlanta series and then in the San Diego series. I look at this team, and a team that went from being 13 games under 500 to 16 games over at the end of the regular season is certainly not mentally weak. A team that rallied in Milwaukee with their season on the line in Game 3 of the wild card, certainly not mentally weak. Not at all. This team made up of a bunch of castoffs who were considered past their prime or at the end of their careers, got this team to here. No one really thought anything of Luis Severino coming into this year, or Sean Manaea, or Jose Iglesias, and yet here they were. I will give this team plenty of points for their mental fortitude to keep coming back and do what they did. But above all, I look at this NLCS, and there's no one play, moment, or call where I can go, well, if that went differently, we would have won. Did we leave a million runners on base? Yeah, and that's annoying. But I don't think you can go back to one specific spot where it's like the series swung on that.
Yeah.
The 4 games the Dodgers won, they smoked us in all of them.
Yeah, they smacked the shit out of you.
There wasn't one late lead that we blew or opportunity we didn't cash in. I think early on in some of those games, if we had scored early, yeah, maybe it would have went differently. But it wasn't like it came down to one thing. The pitching wasn't quite there. The offense, I think, made decent starting pitchers look great. And credit to them because they made the pitches and we didn't have the discipline. But I can genuinely look at this series as a whole and say they just got beat.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as it is some sort of tragedy of, I'm unbelievably sad that this team isn't going to keep playing and have the chance for the ultimate prize, of course. But I don't look at it as, oh, man, this team should have done more. I don't believe that. I think to go from where they were, from what was expected at the start of the season to now, it's hard to look at how that series played out and go, they underachieved because they sure didn't. And would I like to be playing right now? Of course. But I think this is about as satisfying a season as you can have without winning it. And because sometimes you lose in the World Series and it makes it hard to look back at everything else and
it makes it harder.
Yeah, because you're like, man, all of that would have been so great if we had been able to just top it off.
Yeah.
You could certainly say that about this year too, but it's like, I mean, how many great moments have we talked about in the past 3 or 4 months, or just
Yeah.
in the past month alone? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna think of those forever. It's not even just in the playoffs. Of course, it's the game 161 homer from Lindor. The game in Toronto where they were getting no hit into the ninth, came back and won that. The two walk-offs against the Orioles. I know they had a walk-off against the Marlins. Vientos had that walk-off home run against the Reds. The run that they had in June going into the All-Star break. Like, all of that's there. Or, Severino throwing a complete game shutout. All of that. There's so much in this season. And again, the whole point is to go out and win the whole thing. That's why we sign up for this. But if we can't, it's hard to beat what they just did. And I mean,
I
it'll be tough
agree.
for me to watch the World Series because I'll be like, man, I wish that was us. But
who will you be rooting for in the World Series? And you can be as honest as you want, or if you hope both teams lose, that's fine. But who do you personally?
You remember that one scene in Pittsburgh from The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane showed up at Heinz Field?
Yeah,
that one.
That you're rooting for Bane. Okay.
Yes, yes I am.
I am your reckoning. But
oh, your beautiful little baseball game. Ah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, if that does happen, it's like a game where like we're getting absolutely smacked. If that ends up happening, we get some divine intervention of that sort. Who would you say most Mets fans are rooting for in this series?
Would you
it's
say hard for me to say. You would think the
Dodgers?
obvious answer would be the Dodgers, but like you said, I mean, I don't think it could have been more obvious of what national baseball fans and the national media wanted. So it's like, man, do I really want to see the Dodgers? Like, there's usually no shame in losing to the champ.
To the champs.
Okay. That's all we needed to do. But in this one, I don't know. I would feel pretty icky. And of course, for me, you see the Brooklyn Dodgers pennant I have on my wall, but that's more a reflection of my family.
Upbringing. Yeah.
And I've mentioned on here before, when the LA Dodgers would play the Yankees in the World Series, my grandfather wouldn't even acknowledge that baseball was being played.
Yeah.
And I think I might have to uphold that.
Yeah. No,
I could see where Met fans maybe would be like, yeah, I want to see the Dodgers get embarrassed. And I certainly understand Met fans that don't exactly want to root for the other team in the city. I get it. To me, it's like, am I really going to feel good either way? I don't know.
I can respect that.
It's better than Yankees Phillies. It's better than that. I don't know how much better it is.
Yeah, well, that would kind of force you to root for the Yankees. So that probably
so much as I could ever root for them. More of like, I don't want the other side to win. So
yeah,
sure, but
it's basically like voting in elections.
I believe I think my friend Anthony Art just said it best. That series was the Alien versus Predator series. No matter who wins, we lose.
Yeah,
that's what that was.
Yeah,
I don't think nothing will ever be as bad as that. But
yeah, no, I hear you on that. I will say that "Beat LA" sign you got back there is looking awfully nice. I might need
the year I got it. So
yeah, I might need a little "Beat LA" sign of my own.
In case it wasn't cemented already, I really do hate the city of Los Angeles sports wise. The 2009 NBA Finals, the 2014 Stanley Cup Finals. The Rams kept the Bucks from going back to back a couple of years ago.
Right.
So in every single sport, they have taken joy from me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't really have that much beef with LA. I mean, I kind of like the Kings for the same reason you don't like them. I was fairly indifferent in the NBA Finals. I mean, I was rooting for the Lakers when they played the Celtics. When they were playing the Magic, I was kind of like, well, it'd be cool if the Magic won, but I just didn't really see it happening. The most beef I've ever had. The Anaheim Angels have knocked us out in the playoffs like a couple of times, but like it's not even like really that big of a deal.
I don't think
But
that'll be happening anytime soon again.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, and that was before they were even known as the LA Angels. That was back when they were like just the Anaheim Angels. And now we got, and for me, I always feel like I end up rooting for like, I feel like I always, maybe it was just like because it's a habit instilled in me as a kid, but I always just like after we lost to a team, I would hate them so much that I'd want to see like them get beat. But yeah, I also understand the sentiment of, you lose to the champs, then you can say, hey, like we challenge the shit out of like the best team. So I get it both ways.
Yeah.
I
I
could
will
also
say, I know
understand.
I did see a lot of chatter about did Mendoza get it wrong with the lineups, and it's the one thing I probably would, if something could have gone a little bit better from a managerial standpoint.
That would be
I
it.
don't think Jeff McNeil was ready, but I do think he probably could have gotten an earlier shot in the series solely
Yeah.
because I
I
think Jose Iglesias, I think like his bat had done about as much as it could. And
yeah.
I
I
think sometimes you
personally
just have
thought
to be willing to try stuff. I get why they kept Francisco Alvarez in because I know the pitcher's numbers are much better than they are with him than they are with Luis Torrens.
yeah.
And I think that the pitching staff would have been furious if he had been taken out. And the
Yeah, but
fact, plus, like he had been playing some, like I don't think Torrens had played maybe since the second to last week of the regular season. So like throwing a
you
guy
really
in
can't
that
look
cold
at that.
wouldn't have done really. It wouldn't have done him or the team any good. But
No.
Winker, unless we come out that it's a miracle he played the last two games because I know his back wasn't 100%. But I kind of wish he hadn't been as loyal to JD Martinez as he was because prior to that, in both of the prior series, every time they called on Jesse Winker, he delivered. And if he just gets
Yeah.
into the lineup a little earlier in this series, like maybe that changes a game. I think if there's one thing that maybe will bug me coming out of this series is I don't know if we had our best lineup out every single game until it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I personally I thought that if I thought that like when I heard McNeil was on the NLCS roster, personally my first thought was he can't see the field. If he sees the field, like you guys are probably in trouble. But he actually, from what I remember, he didn't do too bad in the NLCS, like when they did call on him.
well,
Um,
the defense isn't the issue for it was just a broken wrist. So it was just like, is he going to be able to swing well enough? And if you think he
yeah.
was healthy enough to be on the roster, then you trust him to take at bats. So you assume that the wrist was fine. And I kind of trusted in the idea that he was probably our second best hitter after the All-Star break besides Lindor. So if you feel comfortable enough to include him, then okay. If we have to put him out there to take at bats, then we trust that he can do something of a job up there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Iglesias hit maybe like 150 or 160 for the postseason. I think the magic carpet ride had come to an end for him in that respect.
Right.
I get the calls for Acuna because he hadn't looked overwhelmed when he came up, but I also think that's an even bigger spot to put someone who's had maybe 30 plate appearances where it's all right, you're going to face the Dodgers bullpen, you're going to face Yamamoto, go figure it out. And hey, if he's ready, he's ready, but I don't know if I would have been ready to throw Acuna in there to get 3 or 4 at bats a game in a series with the World Series on the line. If he,
Yeah, that's
if
a
he
lot.
comes back and kicks ass next year, all right, put him in the playoffs and let's see him do it. But I don't know if this would have been the spot.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I guess my one question would be, as far as like this, as far as the series and everything and like this season as a whole, do you look back at all and do you think anything more could have been done at like the trade deadline? Like, do you think there was like, do you think if they if they treated, because I know that like the whole thing with the Mets was like this year was kind of supposed to be like an evaluation type of year, and like 2025 2026 is like when they like are planning on like really going for it. Like that's probably like when they're gonna really open up the checkbook. So I guess my question would be like, do you think that there was anything more that could have been done, or if they had more of that sense of like, oh no, we're actually trying to win now. Do you think there was anything more they could have done from an acquisition standpoint at the deadline that could have maybe put the team over the hump?
I think they handled it as well as they could have for where they were at the time. And I think, we were discussing on the show at that point was, I mean, certainly we didn't know what was awaiting us over the ensuing 2 months, but we looked at them at that point as a bridge team that had played well enough to get itself back in the wild card mix. And I think what you do there, given the circumstances of, okay, we really didn't expect to be here, but they've played well enough and they dug themselves out of a hole. So I think they did the right thing of, okay, you've played your way into contention. We're going to give you what we think you need, based on what we've seen play out on the field. Okay, you need a couple extra relievers. They went and got Stanek, who was phenomenal. I think Phil Maton threw really well on the whole, but I think ultimately he got burned out from overuse, and I think that's why he started to falter in the postseason. There's been a lot of discussion about I think he has a player option for next year. I absolutely would. I think couch him with other solid setup arms so that you don't have to over rely on him. And they also went and got Huascar Brazoban, who was supposed to be another 7th, 8th inning guy that they could rely on. He ended up not even making the playoff roster, which you don't expect at the time. They went and got Winker, which was an impact bat, I would say. I think they absolutely needed him to get to the playoffs, and that was one of their best playoff bats. So that was a success in that respect. You would say Stanek was a success because he was probably your best playoff reliever. I would say Maton is a success in the aspect that maybe you don't get there without him throwing all those innings in September.
Right.
The only 2 trades that didn't really work were Brazoban, which I don't think we'd expected him to falter as badly as he did, and Paul Blackburn. They needed another starting pitcher because Christian Scott had just went down. And he looked okay in a few starts. He looked mediocre in a few starts, and then he got hurt. And they were talking about like they did like some sort of operation on him the other day where it was like something removing spinal fluid, which like, you never want to hear that for a pitcher who's like 30.
Yeah.
And he's available for next, but I thought those were appropriate swings for where they were at the time. We thought, okay, maybe this team can hang around. If they really get hot, maybe they get into the playoffs. But I think what you don't want to do, and it's not an A to B situation, but like what happened with the Angels last year, where they went for it and then they cut all those guys a month later.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a team go for it where it's like, okay, they're 4 or 5 out at the deadline,
and then they
win it, and then it just comes to nothing. And then it turns out and it turns out that you gave up some superstars to go chase nothing.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that, or you're a playoff team that's like, I think the Mariners once needed a closer, so they traded for Heathcliff Slocum, and they gave up Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe to do it. You want to do one of those.
No.
So I think they took the appropriate amount of weight in their risk. And again, most of those deals either helped them get there or helped them once they were there. So if we knew coming down the stretch, like, okay, maybe we do need to try to swing a trade for Jack Flaherty or an Eric Fetty or something like that. But I don't look at that back. I don't look at that now as, oh man, what if we had just made? Like, I look at 22, and it's, they needed a DH, and JD Martinez was available, and they didn't trade that. Although apparently the long rumored want back that Boston wanted for that was Mark Vientos. So
good. Yeah, it's
maybe
good. A good non-move.
Win some, you lose some.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, and and it's not just the Mets, but you see so many in so many different baseball seasons, you always have these teams that kind of come out of nowhere and like go on a run. Like I remember back in July, we were talking about like who could be this year's version of the Diamondbacks and of like last year's Diamondbacks, and in a way, I feel like the Mets kind of were that team. Like, yeah, they had a lot more money and resources than last year's Diamondbacks, but they were kind of the team that like came out of nowhere and got red hot, and they rode that magic carpet ride as far as they could, and they damn near got to the big dance. So yeah, there's really really nothing to be ashamed of, and I think like I think it's good that you don't necessarily look back on the trade deadline with regret, because the moves they did make helped them get to this position, and maybe something more could have been done, but it's hard to say like at that, because at that time they were basically they were like a couple games over 500.
And
So
at
it's
that
like
point, it was the idea of like, hey, if they even just get there, like that would be really
that
cool.
would be a W. Yeah.
I mean,
So
to know how it played out,
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I guess
So
the other side of the coin of all this is that you never want to fall into the trap of, oh, well, they'll be back, because we've talked about it. Like, it's hard to even get to here.
there's no guarantees. Even if they do open up the checkbook, there's no guarantee they get back to this point.
I guess this probably feels a little more comforting than 2015 was, because that was the last year that felt truly magical in that sense. And we were saying at the time, because it's like, oh, we've got these 5 young aces.
Yeah.
But in the back of your mind, you're also like, yeah, but we probably need to go get a couple more bats, and we got ownership that we have to literally get on our hands and knees to beg to go get somebody. It's like,
yeah, and plus like with said aces, it's like it's
you
only
never
a matter
know.
of time before someone's arm falls off,
Yep.
or someone starts doing the booger sugar or what have you. So
Or someone, so you don't re-sign one of them, and then they take off after they leave.
yep.
You
So
invested all that. The Wheeler one's always the weirdest one to me, because it's like they had spent so much time rehabbing him after all those years, and right as he gets to figuring it out,
he's gone.
but
Yeah.
Knowing that Cohen clearly cares about it, and I mean that full. Like I'm not here to kiss ass, but it's like, I think it's all we ever wanted. You wanted to have someone in charge of this team that felt like winning and losing mattered to them as much as it does to you, and that's so important. And having someone like Stearns in charge, because we had Billy Epler coming off the playoff loss in 22, and I don't think a whole lot of Met fans felt like that was the guy. And not only is it Stearns, but there's been a bunch of stories in the past 2 months where you see, oh, so-and-so who was in charge of the minor league development for this team has signed with the Mets, or so-and-so who was the farm director, or this was the scouting chief for this team, has left their position to sign with the Mets. And it's like, oh, all the smart
they're
people
poaching guys from everywhere. They got like guys from like the Orioles farm system.
Mm-hmm.
They poach like a lot of like the best guys as far as like scouting and player development goes. So it's not just about handing out, it's not just about handing out these big contracts. It's the money that you invest in the organization and the your baseball ops people that really make a difference too. And
it's not just the GM and the president of baseball ops. It's all the guys underneath him that send everything up the chain of command. All of that has to work together.
Yeah. And Cohen,
it's why you see like all the Astros guys got jobs elsewhere. It's why the Rays guys keep getting jobs elsewhere. The Dodgers and the Giants guys all keep getting jobs elsewhere. It takes a lot of people for it to work, and David Stearns is putting that together right now. So it's okay. Yeah, nothing's guaranteed. The NL's still very deep. The Braves and Phillies will still be there next year. The Dodgers will still be there next year. The Padres will be there. Like
there's probably going to be another team that's there that you're not expecting too.
Yeah. So it's, none of this is easy, but it's like, okay, I feel better equipped to get there than I have in a long time.
Yeah, you feel like you're like in like a good spot.
And to say nothing else of the fact that, regardless of whoever we sign, you look at the minor leagues and they have multiple pitching prospects that they can call up next year, whether that's Brandon Sproat or Mike Vasil or Dom Hamill or Calvin Ziegler. They've got those guys. Drew Gilbert's out there killing it in the Arizona Fall League right now. That's one of the guys they got for Verlander. Ryan Clifford is the other guy they got for Verlander. He'll probably be up at some point next year. Drew Gilbert might make the opening day roster right out of the chute. So there's so much more. It's not just that you hope to get back. It's okay. there are tangible ways that I can point to that says, hey, these guys can help us get there, regardless of who we trade for or who we sign. And that's where you can feel like, all right, maybe it's not a guarantee, but it's not like we're just crossing our fingers and hoping it works, because that's not what we're doing now.
You're not just like throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. And like, Cohen is like, like obviously, it would have been nice. I'm sure there are some fans out there that would have been saying, oh yeah, if we did go all in at the deadline, like we could have made moves to win that series and be playing right now. But, ultimately, like, Cohen's a businessman, so, he's going to weigh risk versus reward with everything. But also, like, what's good about him is like he hires the right guys, he trusts them, and he stays the fuck out of the way, and he just opens up the checkbook when necessary. And
that's what you want.
That's all you can really ask for out of an owner is like, hey, like, give a shit about winning, give a shit about the product, because that's going to lead to more money. You win more games, more people show up to games. People will buy your championship T-shirts for whatever and your hats. So, so it's like just stay out of the way and let the baseball people do their baseball things. But do you have any final thoughts before we'll close out the episode, and then we'll move on to the next part of our Nope season series?
Tommy Edman, you're gonna have to come see me.
First
out there.
You're gonna have to see me. If you want to see him, you got to get through me. So you're gonna have to see both of us, Tommy Edman. Come on the podcast and discuss with us. But that's going to do it for us here in episode 23. Let's go Yankees. Condolences to all the Mets fans. And we will see you next time. Peace.